And welcome back to Music Free Static. I hope you're having a fabulous day. And, I'm a romantic, okay? I always have been. As far back as I can remember, I have loved. Love? That seems really a weird thing to say. But yeah, it's totally true. Now, I had zero intentions of doing anything around Valentine's Day, okay? Well, I'm a romantic, my wife is not, okay? Valentine's Day is simply Chocolate Appreciation Day Eve, okay? it's we just don't really we don't do anything for Valentine's Day. But I was sitting down and I was futzing around on my computer, partly thinking of, hey, what am I going to talk about on the podcast today and all this stuff. And I put on in the background Star Trek because I've been working my way through the original series. And the episode that was just next on the list as I've been working through, I think it's episode 27 or something of the first season, was The City on the Edge of Forever. Okay. Which is one of my favorite episodes of Star Trek. Okay. But it is also one of the most romantic in some ways. All right. And it's got a really interesting premise that I got thinking about. So if you've never seen the episode, I'm going to go into spoilers here because I have to. But, so if you want to go watch the show and then come back, whatever. But the plot goeth thusly. During an investigation of temporal turbulence, right? Dramatic ship rocking. Right? Dr. McCoy is accidentally injected with a medication that causes raving paranoia, right? He gets a serious overdose of this stuff, okay? He then beams down to the planet they're in orbit of and jumps through this time portal, okay? He's then followed by Kirk and Spock, who have to prevent him from doing something which has now eliminated their past, okay? The Enterprise no longer exists, right? They're stranded on this planet. McCoy did something and they have to stop it, okay? But they don't have a lot of precision, right? They just know they got there before McCoy. They just don't know how far before McCoy, okay? And they find shelter, Kirk and Spock do, at a mission in San Francisco during the Depression, run by a woman named Edith Keeler, who's also played by Joan Collins, if you care about such things. And while Spock is rigging up something to allow him to access the tricorder and see what's, try to pin down what McCoy did, Kirk ends up falling in love with Keeler. All right. Now, despite the the persistent thing that Kirk gets it on with every woman he runs across, he actually doesn't that often. But this is one of those where he definitely has this relationship with Keeler. They're still at the stepping out phase. They're not at the getting it on phase, okay? But Spock finds out that Edith Keeler is the key to what's going on. He finds that there are two possible futures for her. One, she dies in a car crash. Or two, she lives, leads a pacifist movement, and that movement delays the entry of the United States into World War II. And that delay allows Germany to win. Okay? Not a great outcome for humanity. Sorry. I'm not a fan of Nazis and them taking over the world. So that's the setup for the question, which I think is so excellent in the science fiction type perspective, but also as it ties into this whole idea of I'm a romantic, right? Was if you knew that the person you loved had to die to save the future, could you let them die? No, I'm not saying could you murder them. That's no, but could you let them die? And that is a fascinating question, right? From a science fiction perspective. And then for me as a romantic, it's like, no, but oh, and it hurts so much in my heart, right? Oh, it's a fabulous, fabulous story. Okay. But as I was thinking about this, some of my favorite romantic things are not necessarily romance in the ways of man and woman fall in love and go on to live life forever together, whatever, something like that. Okay, that's great, and I certainly love myself a good rom-com, I'll tell you, right? Sleepless in Seattle is one of my other favorite movies. But I I sit there and think about books, for example, like Lord of the Rings. Okay, Lord of the Rings has one of those scenes that screams romance, but not in a meet cute, lovey-dovey, we are going to traipse through the woods together, but a love of people more generally. Okay. And sort of the power of that love to change a person. So in the Fellowship of the Ring, the Fellowship ends up in Lothlorien, okay, which is presided over by Lord Celeborn and Lady Galadriel. And Gimli is overcome. he's smitten with Galadriel. But again, it's not this, hey, I want to go out and introduce her to the joys of beards, okay? No, it's something deeper than this. As the Fellowship is leaving Lothlorien, there is this gift giving. Galadriel is giving gifts to the Fellowship to aid them on their journey. To Aragorn, she gives a new sheath to protect Anduril, the Flame of the West, his sword, which has some enchantments on it to protect the sword. Okay. To Merry and Pippin, she gives silver belts. To Boromir, he gives a gold belt, or she gives him a gold belt. Legolas gets a new bow and a quiver of arrows. Sam gets a box of soil, and what we find later is a seed for one of the trees of Lothlorien. Frodo, as we know, gets the glass that holds the light of Arendelle, right? Okay, cool. No, Sam does not get a coil of rope. That's just the movies and is silly. But at least it explains why he has rope. Yeah. Okay, but Gimli is interesting. Now, I want to give a little background here because it's important of why this scene hits so hard for me, okay? And I'm not going to go so much into the Silmarillion that talks about some other deeper meanings of this, but in the background of the Lord of the Rings, in the history of Middle-earth, dwarves and elves have an animosity, okay? There is if you want to call it a racial hatred between the two of them. And you see that at times through the book, or at least the beginning of the Fellowship of the Ring. So here's Gimli now, and Galadriel asks, what gift would a dwarf ask of the elves? And Gimli says, I'm quoting from the book here, it says, "None, lady," answered Gimli. "It is enough for me to have seen the Lady of the Galadriel and to have heard her gentle words." Now, this astonishes Galadriel somewhat. And she makes some comment about him. It's like, that everyone thought that the strength of dwarves was in mining and stuff, but not in words and whatever. But she presses him to actually name a gift. And Gimli goes on and says, "There is nothing, Lady Galadriel," said Gimli, bowing low and stammering. "Nothing unless it might be, unless it is permitted to ask, nay, to name a single strand of your hair, which surpasses the gold of the earth as the stars surpass the gems of the mine. I do not ask for such a gift, but you commanded me to name my desire." Now, this astonishes the elves, okay, and the Silmarillion goes on again about what a social faux pas that is, right? But Galadriel continues and asks, okay, what he would do with it. And it's his answer, I think, that is, it brings the romance, okay? And again, I'm not talking about the lovey-dovey two people wander off in the woods to rub body parts together or something, okay? I'm talking about something deeper. So Gimli's answer is, when she asks him what he would do with the hair, he says, "Treasure it, lady," he answered, "in memory of your words to me at our first meeting. And if ever I return to the smithies of my home, it shall be set in imperishable crystal to be an heirloom of my house as a pledge of goodwill between the mountain and wood until the end of days." Right? This is an end for him of generations, really, of racial hatred between dwarves and elves. That is amazingly powerful. And I like a little bit what they do in the movie when in Return of the King, when you have what's remains of the Fellowship standing with the army in front of the Black Gates, facing certain destruction unless Frodo actually does succeed in his quest. And Gimli states, as he's standing there next to Legolas, "I never thought I'd die fighting side by side with an elf." Legolas answered, "What about side by side with a friend?" And Gimli's answer is, I could do that. Right? That is so powerful to me. Right? It is a depiction, a demonstration that love can overcome these generations of animosity. That is so amazing to me, right? This is some of the romanticism, okay, that I like, right? It's this idea that not only do you have, love one for another in a husband-wife sort of relationship, but you can have love for mankind. Now, it also talks about in the book, especially you get into the appendices of The Lord of the Rings, that the friendship that was formed between Legolas and Gimli was so strong that after many, many years, Gimli went to the Undying Lands with Legolas and was the only dwarf to ever have done so. This is an amazing level of love for all living beings, right? Not just between dwarf and dwarf or human and human. We are going to get over all of this racial garbage that we've been dealing with because of this love that was formed, right? This is the sort of thing that really touches my heart, is that love that changes people, okay? It changes them for the better, right? Now, you can go through and look at, what's it? This is so freaking common. Why am I having a hard time remembering it? With Ebenezer Scrooge, right? A Christmas Carol, right? And he learns the true meaning of Christmas, right? Because he meets the ghosts and he sees his past, present, and future, and changes and keeps Christmas in his heart the whole year through. What does it mean to keep Christmas in his heart? And what it means is it is a love for the people around him. Okay? Again, we're not talking about, Scrooge found some girl and now that's changed his life. In this case, he got scared straight in a lot of ways. Okay? And that is what I think so often gets overlooked, right? One of my other favorite stories is the movie Man of La Mancha, okay, which is a film adaptation of a Broadway musical based off of the stories of Don Quixote. Okay. Now, in the uh, in the movie, I particularly like the way this is handled. So, you've got our intrepid knight Don Quixote, who is out of his freaking mind, right? Right. To be overly kind, he is just a nutball. Now, he has decided that knight errantry is the way to go. Now, we're talking about knight errantry, and he's in I don't know, was it 1800s, late 1700s Spain, something along those lines? Okay, we are not talking the 1400s with knights in armor riding. This is significantly later. But he and his friend ride off to pursue knight errantry. Okay, and they stop at an inn, and he sees this serving girl. Now, she is every cliche of a serving girl in this time period. And if you'll forgive the language here, in one of the songs, she describes herself as a kitchen slut reeking of sweat. All right. And she definitely considers herself the lowest of the low. And nobody else really has a lot of respect for her either. But Quixote sees her, and through his madness, sees her not as that type of woman, and instead sees her as a lady, full, as in the full knights, lady of the castle type. That's how he sees her, and that's how he treats her. He sees her not as Aldonza, the serving girl who will, again, as she puts it, cross her palm with a coin and she'll willingly show you the rest, right? He doesn't see her as that. He sees her as Dulcinea. Said that he is the most pure and virtuous, the most worthy of love. Okay, she doesn't return this. she doesn't. She thinks he's out of his mind. But he still treats her this way, and he comes to her defense. When one of the customers gets a little impatient for the services he has paid for, shall we say. Well, the story goes on, and eventually we find Don Quixote now in bed, quote unquote, cured of his madness, and he is dying. While he's there, he's now dictating out his will, and as he does so, Aldonza shows up. And he doesn't remember her. And she reminds him of the quest he once told her about. Which, when I heard the song The Quest, okay, when I was a kid, it bored me to tears, all right? As I got older, and I actually started to appreciate what the quest actually was. The quest it's basically his mission as a knight. It's, or maybe more appropriately, his mission in life, right? To dream the impossible dream, to right the unrightable wrong, to go where the brave will not follow, right? And to be willing to march into hell for a heavenly cause, right? His quest is to make life better for everybody, right? And yes, he wants to do it as a knight, right? That's his view, but his goal, his mission is to fight evil, to overcome the evils of the world, and to bring goodness and light to those around him. And as he's dying in his bed, and Aldonza reminds him of his quest, he remembers her, and he remembers that quest. And yes, he in one last burst of knightly virtue, he gets up, they sing a refrain for the song, and he dies. Because the reality is, he's an old man. But as Sancho and Aldonza are leaving, he asks her what she's going to do. And, she says, what are you going to do, Aldonza? And she looks at him and says, Dulcinea. And he smiles and he nods, and they go their separate ways. She has decided, not in the she's out of her mind sort of sense, but she has decided to embrace the love that he had for her and be better than she was, right? That story, again, it's not, right? It's not this old guy and this kitchen serving girl getting it on, right? Because what he has, I guess, is a love that is deeper and more pure than that, and it has changed her life. You could talk about all the dangers, whatever, of the madness of Don Quixote, but his love for her changed her life for the better. That is the sort of romanticism. That is the sort of love that really ends up touching me in weird ways, okay? And in good ways. Again, I like a good rom-com. What women want is hilarious and fun. Sleepless in Seattle is great. And it's a romantic comedy where the two sides of the romance barely meet. They talk to each other, they exchange like 2 words in the middle of a street, and then they meet at the end. I mean, that is it. But it ends with the promise of so much more. And which so many of the romantic comedies do. The story is how they get together. And then it's happily ever after, right? One of the others, and I've talked about it before. I think I did a really late movie review of the movie Moonrise Kingdom. And that story, again, I mentioned that at the time, I have no idea why I like this movie so much. But I do know that one of the things I like about it is the romance. Okay. Now, how much romance do you get between a couple of 12-year-olds? Well, okay. But what's portrayed in that movie is that they have this unending love for each other. And that love changes the people around them. It changes it changes his scout troop, who before sort of just treated him with at best ignorance and at worst teasing and mocking. And the troop realizes, he was, that they treated him badly. He was one of theirs, and they screwed up. Their love brings together her parents, who are, their mom was having an affair, and they were barely speaking to each other. Other than the fact that they're business partners and they have to work together in their law firm. And this brings them back together. it shows a way that that love can make everything better, right? And so for me, as I look at things like Valentine's Day celebrates, I think, the wrong thing. Yes, okay, you get into the whole Hallmark card of it. It's definitely an excuse to buy candies and chocolates and presents for somebody, right? In a very superficial sort of way. Okay. This is the I will cross your palm with a coin sort of way. All right. That's not to say Valentine's Day can't be made into a celebration, or you couldn't celebrate it in a way that's something deeper. Okay. And I mean, I did surprise my wife one year. It was many years ago. I I bought her the sort of giant teddy bear, and she's not totally into this sort of stuff. But a few weeks before, Walgreens had just opened a store in our town, and so we went and walked around Walgreens because hey, it's new and let's see what's there and all that stuff. Well, given that it was, I don't know, said it was January or something at the time, yeah, they had Valentine's stuff up, and one of these things was this giant teddy bear. And it's your typical, it's a white teddy bear with little hearts on the pads of its feet and, that type of thing, right? It was, heart-shaped nose, all of that stuff. It was just adorable. And she thought it was the greatest thing ever. Or at least she thought it was really, really cute. And we walked out of the store, empty-handed, because that's not why we were there. But one evening, I had a meeting at church because I forgot why. I was in some leadership position at the time and had a meeting at church. So I stopped by Walgreens on the way home. I bought that teddy bear. And then I, later that night, or maybe it was early the next morning, because she tends to stay up later than I do, and I get up early. I made a Valentine's card, but I had taken photos from our wedding that we had scanned in, and I had put those on the Valentine's card and gave it to her. So I had sitting in her chair at her computer was this teddy bear with this homemade Valentine's card. And oh yeah, yep, I hit the right note on that one. Okay. Despite the fact my wife is about as far from being a romantic as there could be, yep, there's a win for me. Thank you very much. Okay. So yeah, you can go and maybe make something that's a little bit more touching. And even that perhaps is even probably more superficial than it could be. But regardless, saw that, or, you can take Valentine's Day and be more meaningful. So that surface level is not what we're looking for. That doesn't change lives. What changes lives is deeper. It is that love that makes us want to be better, to make us want to be worthy of that love. And that is what I love. And I love seeing stories that really show that. Okay. And and yeah, said Lord of the Rings is not a romantic book. Even the one love story that is in it, well, maybe there's two, but the story between Faramir and Éowyn is very short and doesn't get too much beyond, lady, I say unto you that you are beautiful. Okay. It's like, as she's in the House of Healing, wondering why he would want to spend time with her. And his answer is, dude, you're hot. Okay. But it does go beyond that a little bit. But yeah, no, it's not the most romantic of books if you're into the lovey-dovey, Danielle Steele type of loves, okay? Romance and stuff, all right? Not quite. But that idea that your love for someone or someone else's love for someone can make them better really touch. And that's one of the reasons I love in Return of the Jedi, right? Star Wars. Why does Vader turn? It's because he loves his son. He has been trying to avoid acknowledging it, but he does love his son. Now, I don't think that necessarily atones for a lifetime of evil, but it did change him. It changed Darth Vader, who was the figurehead of evil, into something better. And that is what I love. That is something to celebrate. Not candy hearts and things like that, but that sort of feeling for anybody, whether it is a significant other, is it a parent, is it children, is it the people around you, that is worth celebrating. And with that, be excellent to each other. And this is Music Free Static signing off.